Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because we're diving deep into one of the most electrifying moments in daytime television history that left everyone from the studio audience to viewers glued to their screens utterly speechless. It all unfolded on the iconic Today Show, that bustling morning staple where coffee cups steam and the world wakes up with a smile. But on this fateful October morning in 2025, the air crackled with an intensity that no one saw coming. Reba McEntire, the queen of country music herself, with her fiery red hair cascading like a sunset over the Oklahoma plains and her voice that could soothe a storm or ignite one, stepped onto the set looking every bit the legend she is. She'd just wrapped up a whirlwind tour promoting her latest album, a soul-stirring collection of heartbreak anthems and empowerment ballads that had fans lining up from dawn till dusk. But little did she know that her appearance alongside the sharp-witted Craig Melvin would turn into a powder keg waiting for a spark. Craig, with his easy charm and probing questions that always seemed to peel back the layers just a tad too far, was in his element, microphone in hand, ready to chat about Reba's rise from rodeo queen to Broadway star to that unshakable force in Hollywood. The segment kicked off light and breezy, with Reba sharing laughs about her early days singing in smoky honky-tonks where the beer was cheap and the dreams were big, her anecdotes painting vivid pictures of dusty boots and neon lights flickering against the night sky. But as the conversation meandered toward her recent ventures, including a guest spot on a hit sitcom that had tongues wagging for all the wrong reasons, the tone shifted ever so subtly, like the first rumble of thunder before the downpour. It started innocently a question about the viral clash that had been buzzing online for weeks, a petty feud with a fellow celebrity that Reba had brushed off in interviews as just water under the bridge. But Craig, ever the journalist, pressed gently, his eyes twinkling with that mix of curiosity and caution. Reba's smile held, but you could see the flicker in her eyes, that telltale sign of a woman who's faced down critics, heartbreak, and the relentless churn of fame without flinching. The audience leaned in, sensing the pivot from fluff to fire, and that's when the explosion began, and not with screams or thrown chairs, but with words sharper than any guitar string, laced with the raw honesty that only someone who's lived 1,000 lives can deliver. As Reba leaned forward, her hands gesturing like she was conducting an orchestra of truth, she dismantled the narrative that had been spun online, calling out the hypocrisy and the half-truths with a precision that made the crew freeze mid-motion. Craig, caught off guard but game, tried to steer it back, but Reba was a freight train now, barreling through the pleasantries with stories from her own battle as the divorces that tabloids turned into spectacles, the losses that carved canyons in her heart, and the triumphs that she clawed from the jaws of doubt. The camera caught every nuance, the way her voice rose like a crescendo in one of her hits, the subtle clench of her jaw that spoke volumes without a word, and the way the light hit her face, turning vulnerability into valor. Viewers at home felt it too, tweets exploding across the platform like fireworks on the 4th. Hashtags trending faster than a summer storm. This wasn't just an interview gone awry, it was a reckoning, a moment where Reba reclaimed her story on live television, unfiltered and unapologetic, reminding the world why she's not just a singer but a survivor, a force that bends but never breaks. And as the commercial break loomed, with Craig's co-hosts exchanging wide-eyed glances, the segment didn't end. It ignited a conversation that would ripple through talk shows, podcasts, and water coolers for days to come, proving once again that in the glare of the spotlight, truth is the ultimate mic drop. But oh, we're just getting started. The backstory to this viral clash is a tapestry woven with threads of ambition, misunderstanding, and the kind of drama that only Tinseltown can spin. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? It all traces back to a glitzy awards gala a few months prior, where Reba, radiant in a gown that shimmered like stardust, crossed paths with a rising starlet whose offhand comment about outdated country divas lit the fuse. What started as a whisper in the VIP lounge snowballed into a social media skirmish, with shady subtweets and fan armies clashing like rival posses in a Western showdown. Reba, ever the class act, initially responded with Gracie, a witty Instagram post quoting one of her own lyrics about rising above the noisy, but as the story twisted and turned, fueled by click-hungry outlets, it morphed into something uglier, questioning her relevance in a genre evolving faster than a fiddle tune. By the time she hit the Today set, the weight of it all was simmering just beneath her polished exterior, ready to boil over at the slightest prod. Craig, perhaps unknowingly, became the unwitting catalyst, his question about handling the backlash landing like a match on dry tinder. Reba didn't explode in rage, no. It was a controlled burn, a masterclass in articulation that left no room for misinterpretation. She spoke of the toll it takes, the endless scrutiny that chips away at the soul, and how she'd learned to armor herself with authenticity rather than armor herself with silence. The audience erupted in applause midway through, a wave of solidarity that washed over the set, and even Craig nodded along, his reporter's facade cracking to reveal genuine admiration. This moment, captured in high definition and destined for eternity on YouTube, wasn't about division, it was about unity, a rallying cry for every woman who's ever been dismissed, every artist who's been pigeonholed, every human who's stared down the barrel of judgment and said, "Not today." As the cameras rolled on, Reba's words hung in the air like smoke from a bonfire, warming and warning in equal measure, setting the stage for what would become a cultural touchstone. And let's not forget the aftermath of the calls flooding the switchboard, the memes that captured her fierce expression in iconic glory, the think pieces dissecting every syllable. But to truly appreciate the depth of this explosion, we have to peel back the layers of Reba's journey, the woman behind the legend who turned pain into platinum records and adversity into anthems. Born in the heartland, where the wind whispers secrets through wheat fields and the stars feel close enough to touch, Reba's life has been a ballad of resilience. From her first marriage crumbling under the pressures of stardom to losing her band in a tragic plane crash that still brings tears to her eyes decades later, she's weathered storms that would fell lesser souls. Yet here she was, on national television, not crumbling but commanding, her voice a beacon for the broken-hearted. Craig Melvin, for his part, handled it with the poise of a pro, pivoting to lighter fare post-explosion, but the damage, or rather, the impact was done. The viral clip racked up millions of views overnight, spawning parodies, praise, and even a surge in Reba's streaming numbers, proving that sometimes, the best promotion is pure, unadulterated realness. As we continue this tale, remember, this wasn't chaos, it was catharsis, a live-wire reminder that even icons have limits, and when they snap, it's spectacular. Fast forward through the haze of that explosive exchange, and you'll find the studio buzzing like a beehive kicked over, with producers scrambling to extend this segment because, let's face it, gold like this doesn't come around every day. Reba, catching her breath with a sip from her water glass that looked more like a lifeline in that moment, transitioned seamlessly into a performance that sealed the deal, a stripped-down rendition of her new single, Unbreakable Chains, where every note carried the weight of what she just unleashed. The lyrics, penned in the quiet hours after that galeless light, spoke of shedding toxic ties and dancing in the freedom that follows, and as her voice soared, filling the cavernous NBC studio with its honeyed timbre, you could feel the collective exhale from everyone present. Craig, seated just feet away, was visibly moved, his usual banter giving way to a rare moment of silence, letting the music do the talking. Backstage whispers later revealed he'd apologized profusely, not for the question but for unwittingly reopening the wound, and Reba, true to form, waved it off with a hug and a quip about how life's too short for grudges, darling. But the real explosion's echoes reverberated far beyond the Peacock Network's walls, igniting debates on everything from celebrity accountability to the cutthroat underbelly of entertainment journalism. Social media, that double-edged sword of our digital age, lit up with a spectrum of reactions. Die-hard Reba fans hailing her as a feminist firebrand, critics decrying it as diva dramatics, and neutral observers simply awestruck by the authenticity on display. One viral thread dissected the body language frame by frame, the subtle lean in, the arched eyebrow that said more than words ever could, turning the clip into a masterclass in emotional intelligence. Meanwhile, the viral clash in question, that initial dust-up with the starlet, gained fresh legs, with both parties issuing statements that danced around reconciliation without committing to it, leaving fans to speculate wildly in comment sections that stretched longer than a Texas highway. Reba's team, savvy as ever, capitalized on the buzz by dropping behind-the-scenes footage from the Today taping, showing her laughing with the crew over craft services, humanizing the icon and underscoring that her explosion was passion, not pettiness. Craig Melvin, no stranger to tough interviews, took to his personal X account later that evening with a post that read, "Honored to share space with a true trailblazer today. Conversations like these remind us why we do this." #Reba rules, racking up likes from fellow broadcasters and celebs alike. It was a classy move, diffusing any lingering tension and framing the moment as a win for real talk in an era of scripted sound bites. As the day wore on, talk radio hosts pounced, inviting experts to weigh in on the Reba effect, to how one woman's candor could shift the paradigm for how female artists navigate feuds, from silent suffering to spotlight showdowns. Psychologists chimed in about the cathartic power of public vulnerability, while entertainment gurus predicted a spike in Reba's book sales for her memoir, which suddenly felt prescient in its tales of triumphs over trolls. And let's talk numbers, because in showbiz, impact is measured in metrics. The Today Show's ratings for that hour block spiked 40%, the highest in months, with demographics skewing younger as Gen Z tuned in for the drama. Streaming platforms reported a 200% uptick in Reba's catalog plays, her voice becoming the soundtrack to commutes and coffee breaks alike. But beneath the metrics lay something deeper, a cultural reset, where exploding wasn't synonymous with meltdown but with breaking free, with refusing to be diminished. Reba herself, in a follow-up interview on a late-night podcast, reflected on it all with her signature wit. "Honey, I've exploded on stage 1,000 times. It's what we do for encores. This was just off-script." Her words, laced with that down-home wisdom, resonated like a chorus everyone could sing along to, bridging generations and genres. As we delve further, it's clear this wasn't a one-off. It's part of a larger narrative of women in the industry pushing back against the boxes they're shoved into, from ageism to archetype enforcement. Think of the trailblazers before here: Dolly with her rhinestone rebellion, Loretta Lynn laying down laws on womanhood, and see how Reba carries that torch, brighter than ever. The Clash with Craig, a mere spark in a bonfire that's been building for decades. And speaking of sparks, let's not overlook the human element. The stagehands who high-fived in the wings, the makeup artist who teared up touching up Reba's gloss, the intern who got their first taste of live TV magic turning chaotic. These unsung heroes amplified the moment, their energy feeding into the frenzy. Post-show, Reba jetted off to a charity event, where she auctioned off the very scarf she'd worn on set, knitted by her own hands during tour downtime, for a cool 6 figures, all going to women's shelters, turning personal fire into communal fuel. Craig, meanwhile, fielded calls from agents pitching explosive guests, but he stuck to his guns, emphasizing depth over drama in future bookings. This synergy, this unplanned alchemy between two pros at the top of their game, birthed something timeless, a reminder that live TV, for all its polish, thrives on the unpredictable, the pulse quickening now that can't be edited out. As the sun set on that whirlwind day, with replays looping on news cycles and fan edits flooding TikTok, one thing was crystal: Reba McEntire didn't just explode, she illuminated, casting light on shadows long overdue for exposure. And with that light comes questions: so what next for the Queen? A tell-all tour? A collab with a Clash culprit? Only time, that sly storyteller, will tell. But for now, let's savor the afterglow, the way her words linger like the last note of a lullaby, comforting yet challenging us to find our own voices amid the noise. Peeling back the curtain even further on this seismic showdown, we arrive at the heart of what made Reba's live detonation so profoundly relatable. It's the story of every underdog who's ever been underestimated, every voice muffled by the roar of expectation, distilled into one unyielding performance under the unforgiving eye of morning show scrutiny. Picture the green room moments before airtime. Reba, perched on a worn leather couch that had hosted presidents and pop stars alike, flipping through cue cards with a focus that belied the butterflies undoubtedly fluttering in her chest. Her stylist fusses over a rebellious curl, her publicist runs last-minute checks on the teleprompter feed, and in walks Craig, all smiles and small talk about the weather in New York versus Nashville, an attempt at rapport building that lands with the warmth of an old friendship. They bond over shared love as a soul food Sundays, the thrill of a crowd's aura, and for a heartbeat, it feels like just two folks chatting over coffee, not a broadcast beamed to millions. But as the countdown echoes from the control booth of 3, 2, only as the masks slip into place, and out they stride onto that sunlit set, where the world awaits. The opening pleasantries flow like fine wine. Reba gushes about her co-stars on the sitcom. Craig recounts a fan encounter at one of her concerts that left him humming for days. Laughter ripples through the audience, a sea of faces lit with anticipation, phones at the ready to capture the magic. Then comes the pivot, that innocuous segue into the elephant in the room, as Craig phrases it with a disarming grin. Reba, we've all seen the headlines about that recent dust-up. How are you feeling about it now? The question hangs, innocent on the surface, but loaded with the subtext of every interview that's ever cornered a guest into confession. Reba pauses, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee mug, and in that suspended second, you can almost hear the gears turning, weighing grace against grit. What follows is poetry in motion, or rather, in monologue, a torrent of truth that starts measured and builds to a blaze. She recounts the gala night in vivid detail, the flashbulbs popping like gunfire, the champagne flutes clinking in hollow toasts, the starlit spark delivered with a smile sharp as shattered glass. Darlin', I've been called worse by better, Reba says, her drawl thickening with emotion, but when it questions not just my music, but my heart of the songs I've sung through tears you can't imagine, it hits different. The studio falls pin drop quiet, save for the hum of cameras and the occasional gasp from the crowd. Craig interjects softly, that must have been tough. But Reba's on a roll now, weaving in tales of her mother's unwavering faith, her father's calloused hands teaching her the value of hard-won respect, and the fans who've tattooed her lyrics on their skin as badges of battles won. It's not anger, it's alchemy, transmuting hurt into wisdom that lands like wisdom bombs, each one exploding assumptions about age, genre, and gender in the industry. The viral element, amplified by a sneaky camera angle catching a single tear tracing her cheek, a vulnerability that humanizes the icon without diminishing her strength. Post-segment, as applause thunders and the hosts scramble to wrap, Reba pulls Craig aside for a quiet word of thanks for letting me be me, a gesture that speaks volumes about mutual respect forged in fire. The clip, as predicted, goes supernova online, dissected by vloggers who praise her poise, memed by comics who crown her queen of the clapback, and analyzed by therapists who see it as a blueprint for healthy confrontation. Meanwhile, the original Clash's instigator breaks radio silence with a lukewarm tweet of admiration, which fans greet with eye-roll emojis and calls for authenticity. Reba's response? Crickets, followed by a sold-out arena announcement that screams louder than any retort. This explosion, you see, wasn't destructive, it was directive, pointing spotlights at inequities long simmering in showbiz shadows, from pay gaps to playlist biases, all underscored by Reba's unassailable legacy. Her discography, a vault of over 75 million albums sold, suddenly feels like a manifesto, each track a chapter in the gospel of grit. Craig, reflecting in a staff meeting, credits the moment with reinvigorating the show's edgier side, green-lighting more unscripted deep dives, and the audience, they leave changed, buzzing about boundaries and bravery over brunch. Reba's words a catalyst for their own conversations. As days blur into a week, merchandise fleece, t-shirts emblazoned with fancy like a firecracker on charities linked to Reba see donations double, her influence a ripple turning tidal. But let's zoom in on the personal. That night, alone in her hotel suite overlooking the Hudson, Reba journals by lamplight, pouring out the residue of release, grateful for the platform that led her phoenix from the ashes once more. Her team toasts with room service bubbly, toasting not the drama but the dawn. It heralded a new era where explosions build bridges, not walls. This lived at nation, raw and radiant, etched itself into the annals of TV lore, a testament to timing's tyranny and triumph. What could have been a career footnote became a cornerstone, solidifying Reba's status as the voice of the voiceless, the heart of the heartbroken,